and it is my great pleasure to introduce a very talented author, Todd Crawshaw.
Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate it. Saturday night, so usually there's other things to do, but you came here, so I like that. I want to first thank the Left Coast Writers and Linda for and the Book Passage for hosting this event and for supporting writers. Kafka, a writer, once said, "Writing is utter solitude, the descent into cold abyss of oneself," which sounds horrible. So, if true, why would anybody ever want to be a writer? Well, I think that what I see is like an athlete, what strives for is to find that, what I call empathetic zone, where time and space tend to dissolve and creativity flows. And that's where, you get your best work. That's it isn't a solitary art form, but every time I do one of these book launches and readings, I'm reminded that it transitions into becoming a performing art. And you have to, it's kind of like a traveling circus and a little sideshow with a dancing bear, so I'm not going to dance. Heretofore was my last novel, and that was a comedy, but this one is not. It's kind of a drain to the dark side of the moon. That's a t-shirt. There is humor in it, depending on what your sense of humor is. And a little background. I came up with this idea years ago when I was a student at the University of Oregon. I was taking a course in abnormal psychology. I was learning about multiple personality disorder. It's now called dissociative identity disorder, and where a person's identity is fractured into two or more distinct personalities. And at the time when I thought, wow, that would be a really interesting subject for a murder mystery. And never thinking that I would actually write a novel or any book for that matter. But then 50 years later, roughly, and then in the 80s I tried the first attempt at writing this book and didn't come out to my satisfaction, put it aside. I was sitting around relaxing after Heretofore was published, and it's one of those light bulb moments where I suddenly occurred to me how I could come back and rewrite this novel, how it should be told. But it took a lot of effort, and the result is God, Sex, and Psychosis. Over that time it evolved from being a strictly murder mystery into a book that's about it's a suspenseful thriller and a psychological puzzle about the nature of our existence, posing this question: who are we really? I mean, what constitutes this sense of self, of who we are, our identity, our personality and or personalities? It's still the central theme is multiple personality disorder. It also has a serial killer that carves X's into his victims, and but the underlying theme is how do children cope with sexual trauma? What is the mental and spiritual path to recovery, to revenge, to love, to redemption? And so that gives you a little preview of what it was. I had more to talk about, but I was told I should read, not go on. So I'm going to start by this little introduction. We are all believers searching for meaning and sexual with desire for a reason and crazy by degrees for love. I'm going to read from the first section. It's called Fae Playing Dead. The epigraph: woe to the innocent who hears that sound. It's from Homer's Odyssey, chapter 1. The sky was a beautiful mess of black ink. It had spilled across a paper-thin world. Light escaped through holes made by angels, so God could look down upon his creation. The Father laughed and called his Son a little idiot. The earth was round and the universe incomprehensible. There was gravity and galaxies and light years, and didn't they teach this shit at school? His father fondly smacked his son's head, then staggered off towards the house, while pointing with his beer bottle at the stars and saying what they were looking at was the past. The light they were seeing took millions of years to reach Earth. For all they knew, the universe was dead. The breaking news hadn't reached them yet. The boys stared with confused wonder into the blackness until they awoke to the sound of birds. The sky was blue, almost white, with a hint of yellow. Crystals of dew were on top of the sleeping bag. He lay still, listening to the silence, the morning calm, waiting for the world to end. But nothing happened. He was alive. Unlike his sister, always pretending, playing dead. Her antics made him laugh. She'd made up ghost stories too, scaring them both before abandoning him for the house to sleep in her warm bed. It was another day. Dead was what happened to their grandmother. Her words a faint memory, like last night's stars. She had told them her face had once been as smooth as porcelain, like the head of the doll tucked beside him. He rubbed at the chipped scar on her cheek to comfort them both, but it only made him feel worse, for he had broken his promise to protect her. The sun was quivering over the trees like a lost balloon, drifting upwards to reach the center of the sky, having almost made it before his mother's first scream of the day. It burst the silence. His father shouting back. They fought like raccoons, clawing and screeching. He pulled the nylon flap over his head and inched deeper into the warmth of his sleeping bag and hugged the doll. Her body was soft like a pillow, only her head was fragile. She was Mira, named after the mythical princess of wonder and visions. And when he dreamed, Mira would be there to protect him. Never ordinary, but magical. Her painted lips told about angels, warned him of dragons, and took him to places unseen by others. Where the animals lived, not the kind his father killed, but the ones who lived on the other side of the world, invisible to humans. Their pink eyes appeared first. He saw the shape of their furry bodies, rabbits huddled in the darkness. Their ears turned upwards and alerted, their whiskered mouths trying to tell him something. Then a door slammed. The boy's head emerged cautiously, peering out from the hole in the ground. From far away, he watched his father moving within the shadows, banging into chairs and rummaging through trash cans. The sun had fallen in the sky. It was behind the arms of an oak tree. The voice of his sister was faint, coming from inside the house. He closed his eyes and prayed for God to make him invisible. Dappled sunlight fell upon him through the rustling leaves that clung to branches. His cheek touched the cool grass. Its damp green scent flooded his nostrils as he slid beneath the surface to muffle the noise of clanging bottles. The rabbits were friendly, their eyes sympathetic. The eyes of his grandmother, his aunt, his teacher, the neighbor who came to their door when the noise from their house erupted into violence. They were urging him to enter another hole which went deeper. There was no time to hesitate. They were gesturing, "Hurry!" The explosion startled him. He jerked upright, brushing flecks of wet dirt off his face. On the ground nearby lay the remains of a squirrel. Half its head was blown off. Across his sleeping bag were particles of fur and blood. Footsteps shook the ground. The rifle barrel moved recklessly in the direction of his head. His father flipped the headless animal into the woods with the tip of the gun. His tears only made it worse. His father telling him to stop whining and be a man. Dogs ate dogs. The weak inherited shit, and he'd better learn that fast. The boy was told to get up and go inside the house. He tried to hide Mira, but his father saw the doll, poking it with the gun barrel. As he walked barefoot across the crabgrass, the boy clutched Mira to his chest. The father followed close behind, asking if the doll was his sister's, asking why he played with dolls, asking what the hell he wanted to be, a boy or a girl. The boy looked for help. His twin sister was nowhere in sight, hiding too or off playing with friends. He could see his mother slumped in an armchair inside the house facing the television. Demanding answers, the father grasped and tugged the boy's long hair, male or female, because if he wanted to act like a girl, to be like his sister, it could be arranged. From one pull, the trigger. Flung around, forced to face his father. He was pushed against a picnic table. Held by the throat, the boy felt the gun barrel pushing through the open fly of his pajamas. The cold muzzle pressed against his flesh, and he screamed. The boy lost his grip, letting go of Mira, and watched in horror as the doll's face struck the red bricks and shattered to pieces. Black ink and stars gushed from his head. That's the end of chapter 1. I'm just going to read a little bit from chapter 2. Egon thought he heard the voice of God in a soft rumble that had formed words, telling him not to fear, to relax, to listen, to trust. He was in the shadows of an oak tree beneath its crown of dark brambles. He looked up to locate the source of this phenomenon as the voice began to fade like a sputtering airplane. The branches were arched and formed the dome of a cathedral with stained glass windows of blue sky and sunbeams streaming through its windows. Blinded for a second, Egon shielded his eyes. In the sparkling blackout, he smelled blackberries mixed with the scent of sage, along with whiffs of dust stirred in the air by his feet. The mountain trail was cooler inside this shady grove, but sweltering beyond its shelter. Even birds weren't talking much, being quieter than normal, hiding from the heat. His forehead was damp with sweat. It was morning, not even noon. He stopped to watch a squirrel scamper up the trunk of a tree and chatter at him before he ventured out into the endless blue sky with the full force of the sun upon him. Egan never thought his sister would actually do it, run away, but now she had, and he was searching the woods looking for her. Being twins, they were supposed to know which each other's thoughts were and how the other felt, which was stupid. He rarely knew what Faye was thinking or feeling, contrary to what he had overheard on the school bus, the older kids saying twins were telepathic. He had to look up the word in the dictionary. The meaning was clear. They believed twins could transmit thoughts supernaturally, which meant these other kids thought they were both freaks. Faye didn't care, but Egan did. He wanted to know what else people thought of him and his sister, and it goes on. So, this book is divided into 3 sections. The first part is the thematic overview. It highlights the formative years of Egan and his twin sister, Faye, and how they were abused by a pretty horrible father. Part 2 is illustrates the fragmented points of view of both siblings, now adults, being analyzed by Mira, a court-appointed psychotherapist who has her own demons to deal with. And part 3 is Mira's story, which is told as a confessional, how she was gang raped at age 12 and scarred by her attackers, and how her rage manifested into a desire for revenge, which caused the deaths of 2 people at the college that she attended, and how these incidents are connected to, or how these incidents are connected to what's going on in San Francisco, the serial killings. So I'm going to read a little bit from part 2. It's called Egan, Trial Separation. The epigraph is, "What is madness but nobility of soul at odds with circumstance?" It's from a poem by Theodore Roethke called In a Dark Time. Just going to read the first paragraph of chapter 1. You're feeling it how it starts. "As I watch her, he watches me. We form a strange triangle. My sister's crazy, fears for her life, so she hires a private detective. I can't see him, but I know he's there, parked across the street, inside a blue-gray Jaguar. It's one of the older models, an XKE, not in great shape. The blue paint has oxidized. All its windows have been tinted dark. Its bulging curves like muscles have a few dents. It makes me think of a stalking animal, past its prime. He's been following me for days, and unaware, like most of us, he is less predator than prey." I'm going to switch to a little bit further, chapter 8. This is a therapy session between Egan and Mira. I get really dry. Okay, so Egan starts with Egan saying, "I wish I could switch from a female voice, a male voice, but I can't, so you have to use your imagination. He says, Mira is intrigued by my question. I ask her again, do you like what you do for a living? Yes, for the most part I do. Why? Psychotherapy is challenging. In what way? You, for example. You're challenging. She gives me a direct look, followed by a smile. I realize I've met my match. Although she is slight in stature, with a demeanor that is non-threatening, she has the hint of an elfin grin, a sweetness which belies a mind with incredible power and depth. I know now, after peeking through a crack in her fortress, there are hidden forces that are discreetly kept hidden. It's something I recognize in myself. She too is full of dangers. This could be fun. You said for the most part, what part don't you like about your profession? You, asking me these questions. I reciprocate with my own smile. Did you choose psychology as a career because there's a history of mental illness in your family, and you, being the responsible one in the line of crazy siblings, decided to fight for the afflicted? Her lips twist playfully. I'm an only child. You got that wrong. I became fascinated by the stars when I was young. Let me guess. You were a child prodigy. And you come from a long line of psychics. No, strike that. Witches? My mother was a bit of a witch, but no. Ah, I've got you talking about your mother. This is good. She responds with a laugh. You're charming when you want to be. I was drawn to astronomy, not astrology. At college, I realized the mind was as infinite as the universe and just as fascinating, which led me to psychology becoming my focus of interest. I detect she has falsified her biography somewhat, yet I let it go. So, there you are, in a nutshell. Mira smiles and compartmentalizes the frivolity and resumes the mask of a profession. Just get back to you. Why not Faye? It's the reason I'm here, right? Precisely. Mira is back in form, her pencil repositioned, ready to take me down with a scribble of words. How would you describe your relationship with your sister? She drives me crazy. She's my sister. That's not to say I don't love her. I don't know who she is half the time. Incredibly patient, Mira observes me intently, listening to my every word like Athena, the breastplated goddess of wisdom. I go on without prompting. She was born 2 minutes earlier and likes to remind me she is the older twin, thus the wiser one. She keeps prodding me to be more adventurous. Would you say she's a motivating force in your art? Faye? No. Some ineffable, ghost-like signal, both essential and inevitable. That's what motivates and guides me. Explain. It's the best I can do. I wait while she jots down notes. She looks up and taps the pink eraser of a mechanical pencil against her teeth. As an artist, with your performances, what do you hope to achieve? Wake people up, entertain, educate, inspire. Wake them up how? As I explain myself, the tip of Mira's pencil comes to rest upon the cleft of her beautiful chin. We're born into a state of wonder. We dive into snowflakes and piles of leaves. We skip and we twirl on impulse. We're delighted as children by simply being alive. She nods. Then everything changes. How do you mean? Pain, restrictions, demands, regimentation, expectations, disappointments, disillusionment, which is part of being alive and maturing, yes? Of course. She is the tenacious daughter of Zeus again, who sprung fully grown and armored from her father's head. Athena, the virgin goddess of reason. I want to bring out her fun side, the elfin goddess. Okay. As a hypothetical, would you act on impulse to shed your clothes and dance naked? I receive a glare of holy light from the polished helmet she wears for protection. Why would I? I admire her curiosity. For the fun of it. I don't see the point. There is no point. Our sense of play calcifies as we grow older. It's sad. It doesn't take a genius to look around and see people going through the motions, like the walking dead, unable to feel how they once felt. Mira relaxes a bit, jots down more notes. When she looks up, she says very calmly and directly, as intelligent as you are, and you are, there is no mistaking that, highly functioning in many areas, while in other areas you are not functioning as well, and that you, like Faye, are in need of help. Can you acknowledge that? I was wrong. Her attacks are quick and decisive. Her remark has blindsided me into silence. I rebut, we're all in need of help, Mira. True, but can you accept that you are? I hold a smile. Maybe. Maybe not. Her elfin coyness returns with a grin. Well, which is it? A definite maybe. Put that down. I will, she says. It's progress. We're getting somewhere. How is this supposed to help Faye? That depends entirely on you. I thought you were the guiding star, no? I'm only Faye's therapist. I'm here to help both of you discover the root cause of your issues and dissociation. Are you married? Why do you ask? Those defensive questions of hers I find endearing. I'm merely curious. If she has nothing to hide, she'll tell me. By avoiding the question will convince me she's not being forthright in her effort to help. She returns a reserved smile. I can't think of a reason why you shouldn't know. I've had proposals, but I've never married. I shake my head. Why is that amusing? If you've never been in a long-term relationship like marriage, or had siblings, it makes me wonder how good you could possibly be at this relationship counseling. Mira stiffens, mentally securing her helmet. When she returns a smile that's slightly askew. I'm joking, I'm sorry. Faye sometimes acts like we're married. It comes from being twins. I see, she says, resettling herself. Would you like to talk about Faye? Not really. The thought of her angers me. I picture the naked man I'd found tied to my dining room table. How about death? What about it? Do you believe in an afterlife? Mira gives us some thought. I'm not sure. Do you? We're like snakes, shedding our skins, or butterflies yet to be, lost in the fog of our cocoons, in a state of transition. Metamorphosis, sure. Maybe God is going through one too, transforming from a him to a her, or something else, who knows? And you believe there's a God. Until proven otherwise, why not? We have mobility, but we're still inside a womb, and all the screaming pain we hear inside our heads, it's like birth pangs. What kind of screaming? The kind Zeus felt right before his son split his head open with a mallet and out popped Athena in all her brilliance. I smile, but Mira doesn't. Do you hear voices inside your head? I was speaking metaphorically, but yeah, I'd say there's more to us than we can imagine. We're a compilation of symbolic entities. I like what Jung said. Archetypes are the constellations in the blind sky of the mind. You've heard of them? Mira smiles. I have. You have a beautiful smile, by the way. Thank you. So back to these nebulous stars, our dreams, which we find wandering up and down the subconscious stairwells of our DNA. These twisted strands of chemicals, like batons passed along by our predecessors, holding the essence of who we are. Jung called it our collective unconscious. We're a composite of many things. I would agree, she says, to contribute. Many voices, and not all of them are screaming. Mira is busy taking notes, so I wait. Or something like that, I add. Mira looks up from her notebook. She has that beguiling look again about her. What you said was poetic. I feel she is toying with my internal circuitry. Thanks, I say, before shutting my eyes. I press fingers against these orbs, pressing into the pain. Why is she flattering me? It feels like a chess move. She's letting me win, letting me think I am, but I'm actually losing. I can hear Hunter sneering. He thinks I'm capitulating, love-struck, therefore willing to be led to the slaughter. A wild impulse washes over me, a need to blast some useless carbon from my mind. When I open my eyes, I see I've upset her. Her lips are parted. Her eraser is severed. Who am I talking to? I close and massage my eyes. What do you mean? It wasn't me. It was probably something Jung said. I glance at the wall and see I have about 5 minutes left. When I turn back, she hasn't moved. She's waiting for me to say something, so I say, did you know there's a belief in primitive societies that several souls can coexist in one person? Mira nods, leaving the door open for me to enter. I have a collection of masks. Primitive societies interest me. The collective unconscious, she says to reconfirm. Right. I take a moment to rub my temples to ease the residue of pain. People think they know who they are, but they don't have a clue. We have no idea what lurks in the labyrinth of the soul. You said lurks, which would imply you feel something's ominous at the root, true? I used the word arbitrarily. I don't believe you did. She's unrelenting. Fine, what do you think I meant? I think you know. You believe there is something there you're afraid to face, something that might devour you. You mean like a minotaur? Yes, something you must defeat in order to get better. Because you think I'm sick in the head, like Faye. She fidgets with her pencil and says, "You've mentioned to me you've experienced blackouts. Not that often. But your life would improve without them?" I'm looking for a way out, a diversion. I rake hands through my hair. That Minotaur? I know the myth. He was deadly. Theseus had a ball of golden thread to unwind as he went through the maze, and after he killed the monster, that thread guided him to safety, out of darkness into light. Are you going to provide that thread? Her eyes are sympathetic. I glimpse something is troubling her. She has her own demons to deal with. We are alike. Her eyes look away to her notes, not wanting to see what's inside of her. Not wanting me to see what's inside of her. When she looks up again, she tells me, "I don't think Faye wants to disappear, or to lose you. You need each other." Her comment is meant to distract me from probing into her own problems. Ah, we're back to Faye. Okay, yeah, you're right. She likes the competition. No, she says, that's not what I meant. You need each other, to feel whole again. Right, like that's gonna happen. Good luck. Call it a woman's intuition. I laugh. My mother used to tell me that. Why is that funny? Because she used to use it as an excuse to get drunk, saying it helped her communicate with the spirits. She was a lush. Did you love your mother? Sure, she never hit me, so there was that. She could be fun, but she didn't provide us with much protection either. Do you feel she loved you? In her way. In what way was that? I indulged in her fantasies. She had dreams of being a dancer, a heroine on the silver screen, a gypsy, a nun. It changed from day to day. I think she wished I'd been born a girl, too, like my sister. Why do you say that? I hesitate. She's eager to hear my confession. How much do I want to confess? What will she think of me afterward? Then again, what difference does it make? I don't want Faye to know about this. You can trust me. Right, I can trust her not to tell Faye, but she can't wait to run and tell her colleagues. She says reassuringly, it must be very personal. Sort of. When my sister was away at a friend's house and my father was at work, my mother used to dress me up as a girl. She'd get drunk and put on records, have me dance, and wearing this ballet dress. A tutu? I feel blood flood my face. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. It helps to talk about it, maybe for you. What else did your mother have you do? Things like that. She used to parade me in front of the neighbors dressed as a girl. It was unforgivable. I hated her for it. Did your father know? One day my mother took me on a picnic in the woods. Then on the way home she ran into a tree and I can feel a migraine coming straight at me like a freight train. Its whistle piercing my skull. I press fingers into my eyes. That's the end of that chapter. There you go. So each of the main characters have experienced sexual abuse at an early age, which is the root cause of multiple personality disorder. Each one has been affected differently by it. One becomes a criminal psychologist, the other a performing artist. They both are intelligent and function normally or professionally, except in certain areas they're not performing well and they are dysfunctional. So I think there's times I'm going to read a little bit from the last part. Unless you don't want me to. Okay. Part 3. It's called Mira, Inevitable Fusion. Let's skip ahead a little bit. When I was 12 years old, I was viciously raped. What am I saying? All rapes are vicious and brutal. My father went ballistic, mentally unraveling from a desire to inflict violence upon my attackers. My mother withdrew into a hate-the-world depression for God, to have allowed this deflowerment of my innocence. I had lied to protect them. I imagined my father being sent to prison for murder. My mother left alone, unable to care for herself, much less me. The revelation to lie came while I was lying exposed on a cold emergency room, being probed and examined in places I'd been told to never let strangers touch. The male doctor even resembled one of my rapists, an older version, and was doing exactly that, touching my private parts while nurses swabbed my naked body open for public viewing. All that was sensitive to me had gone frigid and numb. Initially, I'd been excited by the prospect of my body changing, the pink, budding breasts, the flow of blood and the surge of desire stirring between my legs. I was pleased boys were taking an interest in wanting to be my friend. Then I was raped. I kept a journal. My silly fantasies of worlds where little ponies flew over rainbows and lived in clouds evolved into flights of fancy, about first kisses from a boy, and so many scribbled dreams of love. Then my entries went noticeably darker, which says this about me. I am meticulous, unrelenting, and patiently tenacious, and vengeful. I was hatching a plan. I knew the 3 boys had raped me, even though I'd lied to my parents and the police. Nobody would find and capture the non-existent abductors I'd described, who'd abducted me in their off-white van, drove me into the woods, and had their way with me. I decided, why should I let the police, prosecutors, defense lawyers, or some judge who had no skin in this game be the ones who decided how these bastards would be punished? My rapists kept their distance from me for a while, though they lived in the same neighborhood. A whole year passed before they turned brazen, feeling they had gotten away with it. They teased me with lewd looks and even spread lies about the incident. They said I'd asked for it, and that I had engaged in sex with numerous boys. So when I entered high school, I had a reputation that preceded me. And my rapists, who were all seniors, I'd see daily in the hallways, the cafeteria, or on some football field, playing hero. I kept to myself. Instead of opening up into a beautiful flower that I'd imagined I'd be, I grew up damaged, stunted, and malformed. I nervously ate too much, had put on weight, wore baggy clothing, prescription glasses, and, to add insult to injury, I needed braces. Oh, did I mention the acne? With so many distracting features going on with my face, the scar below my left eye, a knife wound reminder from my rapist, was barely noticeable. Lucky me. Yes, it was safe to say, I was not pretty. I needed to catch up fast, I realized. They were 3 grades ahead of me, about to graduate and to go who knows where. So I doubled down on my academics. I attended summer school, took AP courses, received extra credits, jumped grades. My SAT score landed me in the top percentile. The sum total of my efforts allowed me to graduate at the end of what would have normally been my junior year. My guidance counselor objected to my higher education choice. My options were unlimited, he advised me. But I already knew my sights, but I already had my sights set, having applied, anticipating my early release, and was accepted into the college where 2 of my rapists were attending, on scholarships, one for football, the other one for baseball. They were jocks, and not very smart, for if they had been my equal, they would have had some clue that I'd be coming after them. During those nose to the grindstone days, my body underwent a gradual transformation. I was determined to get fit, to fit in, and become social. I lost weight running track, and one by one I began to lose the rest of my handicaps, acne, braces, glasses. I bleached my dirty blonde hair. If my plan was to succeed, I had to become an extrovert, not an introvert. Emerge from my shell and be a butterfly, not a snail, and appear authentic. So I joined a few clubs, displayed school spirit. I didn't make the cheerleading squad, yet the popular girls nudged into my life, desiring to be my friend. Like I said, I am meticulous, unrelenting, and patiently tenacious, and vengeful. President introduced me. Any questions?
So I'm curious. I'm dying now to read the book, but I'm curious. As you're writing dialogue, do you then reread it and stand in the stance of one character at a time, or do you look at the whole conversation as a whole?
Writing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I kind of alluded to, I talked about how you go to this, how writers, go into this dark abyss, this solitude. Someone asked me in one of the earlier reviews, like writing processes, and, I started like to write early in the morning. It's kind of like going to a movie set and and just, you know, settling down and you know, the directors, you know, what scene we're going to shoot and all that, you know, some of the characters in their trailers and so forth, you know, you get into a state trying to find that zone where everything time sort of dissolves and you become these characters, and so like an actor you have to get into the role, and so it is in my head, and I can hear the voices, and the scene takes place, and sometimes, you know, I'll be writing, it'll be 2 hours and I'll feel like 10 minutes, and but then afterwards, yeah, I'll read it and you know, keep going over and over again to try to polish it out and make sure it feels good.
Besides your abnormal psychology course in undergraduate,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like an intense psychological drama. Do you have any other training in addition to that in psychology?
In psychology, well, I got a degree in psychology, and I had this idea for wanting to write it, and I mentioned in the mid-'80s I was had a client at Good Samaritan Hospital, and I was working on their brochure. It was called Life. I designed it, and the editor asked me if I wanted to write one of the articles. You know, I was a writer, and so it was on a man that had a mental breakdown from Silicon Valley. And I went in to interview him. He had a lot of preconceived notions, but I was kind of surprised, you know, by the whole experience. He was just really a great guy, smart, just changed my mind. But I met all the doctors that were treating him, and I mentioned to him that I was working on this novel on multiple personality disorder. So I interviewed them, and then they directed me to a psychiatrist that was more familiar with that condition, because it was kind of a rare condition. So I had a lot of notes back then, and during that time I've read countless books on memoirs of people that have this disorder, and articles by professionals. And so it's, you know, they got to a point where you can only take in so much, and it is a book of fiction, so I then tried to take all that inside and create the story. So hopefully it's believable. It's a strange tale, and it's yeah.
Did you have trouble transitioning in and out of that darkness? You know, because you have to really delve into that.
Right. You mean while I'm writing and coming out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I said it started, one of the reasons why the first attempt at writing this just didn't fail is because I didn't really invest enough into it, and I realized when I had the idea to rewrite the stories, I really had to go deeper into these characters. And use an example, like as an actor, hearing this Laurence Olivier talking about acting, and he was saying, now, you know, you're playing Hamlet on stage. You have to believe at that moment you are Hamlet, but knowing you're actually not Hamlet. You know, it's like you're out of body experience. But to make an audience believe it, you have to walk that fine line, and it's very similar, I think, with writers, because you have to get into these characters, and you feel like you're telling. I got to the point where I felt I was telling a memoir, or someone else. It wasn't my story anymore. It was someone else's. I got into these characters, and you have to just feel it, you know, inside. And I'm going to talk to you. I had a very good childhood, and so there's a departure from me. But you know, it's that empathy is being able to put yourself into someone else's place and telling their story.
I wanted to ask you, and this is on your second version, not the one that you did earlier, this version.
Yeah.
What changed from your first draft to this book? What were your changes? You know,
Yeah.
well, the macro changes. You
know. Yeah. Well, the first book was kind of centered around this. The second part was originally called Trial Separation, and the idea was studying psychology, that, you know, that Freud's id, ego, and superego, there was kind of like these characters were based on that. It was kind of simplistic, and I studied a lot of Jung, which talks about the collective unconscious, archetypes, dreams, and so forth. And then Roland May, I was influenced by him because he developed the process of therapy that's more of a one-on-one, direct, not lying on the couch telling your problems. But I didn't really have a good ending for it, the first one. I was struggling with this concept. I liked the concept. I thought it was really great when I finished it. And in fact, I sent it off to Knopf, you know, attention to Gottlieb, who was John Gardner's editor. And because I love John Gardner's work, and how, I remember the story between John Gardner, how he rode in his motorcycle and dropped his manuscript on Gottlieb's death says, I would like you to read this now. This approach, got him actually a deal and stuff. So anyways, I wrote a letter to Gottlieb, and he was nice that he wrote me back a personal letter. And he said, it's nice, but not quite there yet, kind of. And so I put it aside. But it was on the second one, to answer your question, it was actually, I just finished reading Gone Girl. I don't know if you're familiar with that book. And it just blew my mind. I said, I loved how her technique and the psychology of trying to invest in these characters, and you think you know them, and then suddenly things shift, and you're going, you don't know who these people are anymore. I love that technique, and that's what this book employs. It's a whole different story and technique and everything, but it's you get into this book, and the characters get into your head, and you think you know them, and then you realize, oh my God, is this person good or evil or what? And it just, you don't really know until the end, until it unfolds, without giving anything away. But I like, I like to write. This is a multi-genre novel. It's a psychological thriller. It's a murder mystery. It's a love story. I mean, it's really about two damaged souls that are trying to overcome their afflictions and metaphorically find their way out of this maze of darkness into the light. No, I don't want to say anymore. And
Speaking of love stories, you must have fallen in love with the character. What do you do when they're complete and they're not actually living? Will you write another book with them?
oh, when you fell in love with the character?
Yeah.
I don't know. You've heard that expression, you have to kill your darlings, when you're writing and stuff. And a funny little story, that the first novel I published, Exploits the Satyr, my daughter was in high school and reading it, and the main character has two daughters, and it was just some kind of loosely based, this kind of thing. So she's reading it, she said, I really like it. She comes downstairs and storms in and goes, "You killed me off!" I said, "No, not really. It's not you, and you're not really necessarily." She took it very personally. But yeah, it's like you fall in love with these characters, and sometimes they just go places where you don't expect it, and you need to do that. And when I've written 3 lousy novels, for my first 25 years, which had good concepts, but it had some good aspects to it. But then 3 good ones after that: Exploits the Satyr, Heretofore, and now this one. And what I found with these last 3 is that I really need to know how it's going to start, and I really know how it's going to end. I need to have a really good ending for it. And how I get there, then I fill in and do it. But it's just having both those things is really important for me. And I'll add one other thing too. Is the question is that I recently we were watching something on Sunday morning. It was of this artist Dubuffet, I think it was, and I was intrigued because he had a family, and he decided at some point in his life that he was going to abandon his wife and his kids and his whole family and cut off everything. He was going to devote his entire life to art. That's all it was. He lived this hobbit life and singing and this, and I thought, geez, I just took the opposite path. It's like, for me, when I start off writing, it's like I said, it's such a solitary profession. It's really lonely and stuff, and I had a hard time writing, but until I met Helene, fell in love, started having a family, which I really wanted, had kids. I took a hiatus after the first 3 novels from writing, and it was, I think, my writing really improved because of that strength of family and love, because when you go off on these flights of fantasy, it's like having this tether that connects you to that. They're my emotional anchor. So you can go off in these weird worlds, characters and stuff, but knowing you have that to come back to is really important.
You have the golden thread.
The golden thread, there you go. And it really is, and it's, so my writing improved immensely as a result of that, just the opposite path.